All right. Sweet. Well, we can move on. I felt like Dharma Talk, based on the meditation that we just did, would be around going to bed. So, as a meditation teacher, there's more aspects to what you offer, I would say, because there's a deeper, more advanced understanding of the nervous system, subconscious programming, like exactly what meditation is doing, because in a 200-hour, we don't really get too deep into it. So overall, nervous system, this may be a review, may not, but basically the line of thinking that I use with anatomy is based on the myofascial system being a second nervous system. So what that translates to is when people talk about body mind, or people talk about mind, right? If I say point to your mind, most people will do this, and you can test it like in anything. Ask people, like at the beginning of a class, where's your mind? And you'll look around, you'll see a bunch of people do this. You'll see a couple people do this, but very few people do this, right? And the koshas, which we go over at some point in the meditation teacher training, in the content, the koshas talk about manamaya and then vijnanamaya. So manamaya is your mind body, right? Your which is your nervous system, basically. Now, why we think that the brain is the mind is because we know this is the command center. And to be honest, when I think about the voice in your head, and just like, where do you gravitate to think that it is? Like, I feel like it's here. I don't know. It's just how I feel. But overall, when I start to talk about the intuition of the body, or the body mind, it's your body. Your body knows everything. Your body speaks your mind. So Gil Hedley's overall PhD thesis was that the myofascial system, so your fascial system, the superficial fascia in the body, as well as the deep fascia, that's your mind. The body is literally giving you signals all the time. We call it gut feelings. We call it feeling with our heart. We talk about emotions being in our body, and then our bodies do physically manifest what's happening emotionally or stressfully, right? So I just, when I heard it, subscribed to that being the truth, because I have spent my career being a nurse / med student, working in the emergency room, where sometimes people come in and what they're showing does not prove what I'm feeling. Example, I had a young gentleman come in with pericarditis. So he was 19 years old, had an insane fever, but no reason for it. And all of the tests were showing that he was fine. I knew it was pericarditis. I just knew it in my heart. That's it, or in my body. He wasn't showing, so there's a positive Hohmann sign where you lean forward, and there's an incredible chest pain, because what it's doing is the pericardium is actually the sac that the heart is in. So when you lean forward, it pushes up against the sac, and the itis is inflammation. So the sac is inflamed. So when the heart's on it, it causes this pain. And it wasn't showing up, but there was a little bit. It didn't show up on the ECG, which shows pericarditis in the waveforms. The fact that he had this, I knew it, but we couldn't prove it. So we sent him home. And this gentleman could have died. Pericarditis could be just like, boom. because the body, that sac can only accommodate about 50 mils. So I think that's 2 tablespoons of fluid between the heart and the sac before the heart can't beat anymore. And that can happen in an instant. And we sent him home. And so we couldn't even, like, he probably would die if that situation happened. Anyways, next day I'm at work and his mom comes up, and he had asked me, he grilled me. My doctor was like, what do you think it is? Blah, blah, blah. What's your proof? What would you do in this situation? I said, it's pericarditis. I would admit him, blah, blah, blah. The doctor was like, you can't. Billing wise, you're not allowed. He doesn't have enough criteria to make it in. Your gut feeling doesn't count. So next day, the woman comes in and she goes, you were right. And I was like, I couldn't put together who she was because I'd seen 50 patients the day before. And then, I was working on another 25 at the time. And she said, my son, the pericarditis, because that's how we usually refer to people, not by name. And, she said he had the positive sign you were talking about yesterday, and it showed up on his ECG. So he's admitted now, and he's, getting all the treatment for pericarditis. So good job. And that was in my body. Like, that was not my head. I felt it in my body. So the Manomaya is the nervous system, and then Vijnanamaya is our wisdom that's located in our body. So we have Annamaya Kosha, which is our physical body. That's the only body we can actually see. And then we have Pranamaya Kosha, right? If we look at that, like, remember, this is science from 10,000 years ago. So if we look at it like as woohoo, then the reality of these koshas is lost. Pranamaya kosha is how our life force gets in our body. So how is that? That's through our respiratory passageways and our cardiovascular system. So pranamaya kosha literally is our blood vessels and our cardiovascular and respiratory system. It's so much so that without it, like, if we bleed out, we die, right? If we can't breathe, we die. So we can link prana and our systems, those two systems together. That's what keeps us alive more than anything else. Breath, number one, airway, and then circulation is number two. In A, B, C, we have airway, breathing, and circulation. We can't stop bleeding until we deal with the airway, because we're talking 2 minutes before someone dies. There's way more minutes before someone bleeds out, though it's not many more sometimes if it's the appropriate blood vessel that's been severed. So I'm getting to back into nursing here. I've been with nurses for 21 days, by the way, and doctors. So kind of re-sparked old stuff. Anyways, so we've got pranamaya kosha. If we look at religion, Jehovah's Witnesses won't even get a blood transfusion because that's where they believe that our life force is, or our soul. So pranamaya kosha, and then we move to manomaya kosha. So underneath that is what keeps everything going without us thinking about it. The fact that we breathe without being conscious to our breathing. The fact that our heart beats without us being making it beat all the time. So that's the manomaya kosha. That's the nervous system. That's the nerves going through. That's us telling us when there's pain and all of that. And then Vijnanamaya kosha, which is the layer below that or inside of that, like Russian dolls, right? And that's our intellect. That's our wisdom. That's when I can ask, by watching, and if anybody wants to go back and watch this, when Anat was talking, there was a space where she knew, and I saw it in her. She's ready to send the document. But the rest, the mind stuff was like, no, not good enough, not good enough, not good enough, was really fighting. And I could see it, I could witness it in her. And that's happening at that level of Vijnanamaya. Her body's telling me, it's done, I'm ready. And then the other stuff is kind of just wading through. And then at the base, we have Anandamaya kosha, which is the bliss body, which is what Jen feels when she meditates a lot, especially with Vishnu. right? There's still a difference between Anandamaya kosha and samadhi, because samadhi means like you no longer need your body, and Anandamaya kosha, you're still in your body. It just feels really good. I felt it with Wim Hof breathing sometimes, and cold baths, when there's like a time where I need to breathe, but I don't. If I can fight that panic, it's quite amazing, of taking a breath, like, oh my God, I'm going to die, is what my body starts to do. After I just lay there, and it feels like my body is like, my nerve endings are orgasming. I don't even know how to explain it. And I think that's touching on Anandamaya kosha as well. So this Vijnanamaya and the Manamaya kosha is really what we're working on here in the meditation aspect. Obviously, Pranamaya kosha and Pranayama are working on that body, and none of these bodies, I mean, like without Annamaya kosha, we don't have any of the other koshas. So we're not individual, or they're not individual, but when we can break them down, then we can study them on a deeper level for what they are specifically. So nervous system wise, when we have emotions and we're in the place of fight or flight, we actually can't process our emotions. And a majority of us are in a place of fight or flight, period. It's a chronic place, right? Old days. Oh my God, a saber-toothed tiger. Okay, I'm okay. Oh my God, I don't know, a big woolly mammoth. Okay, I'm okay. Oh my God, this person was gored in front of me. Okay, we're okay. That's kind of like how the nervous system evolved to support us. Like, I need to run because this thing's going to eat me, or I need to fight because if I don't, I'm going to die. And then when we're safe, comes back down. In nature, we see it all the time. The gazelle, the animals, they will discharge their nervous system post nervous system activation so that they can have this come down. That's how it's supposed to work, but that's not what we do. And so I've shared this in training, is like, I want you to imagine that you are a cup. And when you're in utero, you're empty. You're an empty cup. And then you're born, which is everybody's first trauma. Whether it's C-section or pushed out of, a very narrow hole that is like, that can break shoulders, like literally. So we talk about, and we know how painful it is for the mom, but it's never really talked about how painful it is for the baby. And it's incredibly painful for the baby as well. I mean, their body's being squished into come on, a tiny asshole. So a tiny asshole. Sorry, I digress. So we start by already putting a bunch of fluid into our cup. Right. And then off of that, just think about your mom. And I'm not going down a shitty road. I'm just saying, think about your mom, and think about your mom at the age where she had you. Okay. I mean, like, when we mature, we seem to grow up a little bit. We seem to be able to handle emotions a bit better. But when we're younger, there's like this dysregulation. So you're an extension of your mother's nervous system. So my mom, as I can share, was a really fucked up person. She still is. And now she's like more mature and doesn't hit everybody. So to have her and be an extension of her nervous system is a trauma. And then when we're born, there's a big trauma. And then we're actually like an extension, like we're still very tethered to our parents. So if you're not with your mom, that's that's like an abandonment issue. Right? If you are with your mom and your mom's fucked up, which everybody is in some way, there's just different levels of fucked up, right? Then there's filling up the cup, because how is it emptied? Well, in the first year, it's emptied by your mother being attentive to your needs. So if she's not attentive to your needs, it's actually filling up the cup more as opposed to draining the cup, right? So How do you release some of the water from your cup or the fluid from your cup? And I would say, like, as adults, it's nervous system discharge, it's EDMR, it's like there's a lot of ways that we can, but we also have to combat the constant stress that we have. So to me, PTSD has always been explained as when the cup finally overflows. Like there's just nowhere for anything to go. And it's very like, it's damaging to the nervous system. So it's important that we learn, like if we have this understanding, we can support other people who are in a chronic space of fight or flight. Because anything new, the cup's already overflowing. How do we get a hold of this? It feels like helpless, right? It feels like there's just no point sometimes. And as a teacher, we can hold space for people to understand that, like, maybe we can create, in holding space, we can maybe like extend the sides of the cup a little bit so that there is a little bit of space for someone to experience or release some of the fluid, as opposed to it just being like, I just think of a picture, I forget, I think it's milk or something, and there it's like a meme, and they're just like pouring over, and it's going all over the table. And so we can offer a space where at least we can stop pouring into it for a little bit and allow maybe the edges to come down a little bit. So we can hold this space for people to have at least a moment, and discharge techniques are very, very important. It happens naturally in nature. If a gazelle didn't discharge their nervous system after being chased by, let's say, a lion, then the gazelle would never eat again because it would have anxiety. And anxiety isn't something that is a part of the animal kingdom, because of this natural, like, oh, something happened, oh, I'm going to discharge it reaction. That's very important to keep us healthy. So when we're in this chronic fight or flight and emotions come up, we actually just can't, on a physical level, deal with them, because we are already like, I like the word hypervigilant. We are already too in it to be processing the emotion of your fucking husband, getting grinded on in a video, when you actually just felt like you had a moment finally of being like okay with everything. So the discharge after the processing of the emotions, that is, dumping out the cup a little bit. But you can't dump out the cup if the cup's just overflowing. So setting aside time for nervous system discharge is very helpful. And then speaking about these things to people in class is really helpful too, because sometimes they don't know what's going on. But when you share, they're like, oh my God, that's what's happening. And when they share first, then you can actually start to, not naming anybody, but like I just did, bringing in some things that they've shared with you so that they can be like, oh shit, like that was directly for me, but nobody else maybe knows, or maybe they do. And now there's just a clearer understanding of what's going on, as opposed to what's wrong with me. Why can't I just get over this? Because there's no getting over any of the things, and we're very, very full. So the processing really has to happen of our own accord now. And a lot of people just don't know that. So this space is like, it's such a deeper space than I think many people understand, which is why the art of meditation gets lost within yoga, which is kind of crazy, because really yoga means those three things. And the more that we educate, the more that we can support people in like just taking some time to like empty the cup a little bit. So when we go to bed, here's the thing. We have been literally trained to just like have white noise all the time. So we get really busy, and I'm talking generally, maybe not everybody does, but we get really busy. And so there's a couple quiet times for sure during the day, and that's usually, or during a day, and that's usually waking up in the morning and going to bed at night. So when one lays down after a full day, well, the whole day has been distraction from actually like being with what's going on up here, I say, but like in here in general. So now the body mind is like, okay, I can tell you all the things that we need to deal with now because you're giving me some space. So a lot of people will put on the TV and that distracts. And what it does is actually compounds the problem. It keeps the cup overflowing because we can't like pour any fluid out. So at night, it was usually the worst for people because of that. Like, I have so much to tell you. Like, you want to feel better, but like, here's all the things that are stopping you from feeling better. But what we do is like attach to that being like, why is my mind hates me, or I'm so fucked up? And it's like, no, it's not. We have to reframe the experience so we can see like, oh, thank you, body and mind, for telling me all the things that are going on with you today. Like, give some space specifically, because what happens is the subconscious mind, in the picture of you, we have the conscious and the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind never stops. So the shit starts to come up. We don't deal with it. We go to bed. Now that shit is just playing out in our mind in the form of a dream. Whether you remember it or not, it's how we process. And that's what you've been manifesting for like however many hours you sleep. Or if you don't sleep and then you wake up, what are you thinking about? You know what you're thinking about. It's not rainbows and butterflies. It's like, it's shit and impending doom. So it's literally just creating more shit and impending doom. And then same thing, when we wake up, what's the first thought? Usually I didn't get enough sleep, so we start the day from lack. We go the whole day with lack. We end the day with lack. You know, all the things I did wrong, all the things I'm bad at, all the things I shouldn't have said, you know, like all the things. So we're in this perpetual loop of basically shit, and we're just creating more shit. So the idea is, and here's where we come finally full circle, is that what we think before we go to bed is what our mind or our subconscious mind is going to program for those 8 hours. And so I'm a big promoter of listening to YouTube while I sleep. I haven't been doing that this trip. I did buy a little program that I thought would be kind of cool to just make it easier for me to stay in integrity on this trip and meditate. And so it has an AM and a PM activation. I've been doing the PM activation every single night for sure. And that's exactly what the PM activation is. It's like, review your day, let go of whatever it is that, you know, has been bothering you. Not every single night there's something bothering me, but sometimes I can be like, oh God, yeah. Like when I decided not to go on the bike trip and then everybody found out I was going because I'd had enough of people. I was like, I'm an asshole. And I'm like, and it's just like, just let it go and start fresh tomorrow. And I'm like, yeah, okay, great. So this has been really helpful. And like, and I haven't been doing the YouTubes all night because I'll usually have some kind of program, abundance programming or something going. And I go back and forth. Like, am I really resting if that's going the whole time? And so sometimes I'll have like a 10-hour, like I'm disciplined, or a 10-hour, like I love money, or something like that go on. And then sometimes I take time where I don't have anything going on, but I make sure that I'm falling asleep to something that's programming my mind for the next 8 hours. So that's it. And then be as aware as you possibly can when you wake up in the morning. Set it up so that even if you need, like there's on the top, on the ceiling, my sister has a check from the universe for $1 million. She wakes up and that's what she sees when she opens her eyes, is the opposite of lack, but abundance. I really do. Like, I looked out the window and I was just so grateful for pine, and I'm so grateful for being on this mountain, and I'm so happy, instead of thinking like I would rather sleep for another 3 hours. So whatever it is that you can first set your thought for, that's what you're programming your subconscious mind, which is going to think whatever the fuck it's used to thinking all day for the rest of the day. And if it's, oh my goodness, I'm so grateful, as opposed to I didn't get enough, then this can really start to shift things. And it's not, we are in a time, and I'm definitely guilty of this, of like wanting things right here, right now. I have abundant mindset. Where's my fucking $1 million? Like everything's great now. No, it's not. What the hell am I doing? So there is time in order to change things. And the only way that I can share that example is that I'm right-handed, right? So our thinking in here, or in here, is completely linked to how we write. I write with my right hand. I'm actually like huge on penmanship. I really think I have fancy writing, and I'm very proud of it, and always have been, like really neat. And so when someone tells me take the pen and put it in my left hand and now draw out like Colin, I love you, well, it does not say in between the lines. It does not look that neat. It's actually quite hard to do. And it takes me probably 4 times as long to write with my left hand as it does to write with my right hand. And that's the only way. Like the only way that I will be as good with my left hand as I am with my right hand is if I spend the next 43 years, or let's just say 40, because I probably didn't write until like 3, 4, or 5, the next 40 years writing with my left hand. Your thoughts are no different. We attach a lot of emotion to the thoughts because, now let's, again, another like full circle. When we have emotions and we can't deal with them, we store them in the fascial system. So when we start to rewire our mind, that is literally rewiring our body. And so a bunch of shit is going to come up, and it's going to feel abnormal. Just like we were talking at the beginning, Rochelle, it's going to feel all wrong. It's going to feel like I can't do this. Like there's so much to actually just changing what hand I write with. So when we start to think, we actually attach these to feelings, which they are not. Our thoughts are not our feelings. But now we go to Joe Dispenza, who says that like chemically, we get a hit with our thoughts, and the hit is a feeling. And so for a long time, we've actually been addicted, like we get high on our own supply. And that's not just like meditating, it's also we get high from drama, right? We get high from feeling sad. These are things that we're actually addicted to. And so when I think, let's just say guilt, because I was honest with someone, but that's not where we're going, not going to intellect. We're actually just going to like old school patterns. When I am truthful with somebody, but that's not my norm, then what that's going to trigger is that I'm a piece of shit. And that was really wrong, and how mean I was. And that's me getting high on my own supply, because that's what I'm used to, is I'm a piece of shit. And that's why I'm comfortable. And that's what I know. That's like, if you tell someone stop doing heroin, they have to face their shit. And that's not a comfortable place. Stop drinking. Well, no, because then I'm not numb. And it's much harder to be in that space. So I think I full circled it like completely with the physical, the mental, and the emotional. And that's a lot to carry as a teacher. But I think knowing this now, can you regurgitate this back to someone? Maybe not yet, but you can watch this part over and over again, which, I mean, basically, I think it starts at the 40 minutes. I think we get into it, maybe 50 minutes. And then after that, you can watch this until it starts to sink in for you as more than a concept, because right now a lot of it might be concept, and that's why repetition is so good. The more that we hear it, the more we'll be like, wait, hold on, how can I apply that to my life? That's why I think experiential is so important. Okay, now that I've applied that to my life, now I'm going to start to be aware of the way that other people behave. Oh, I saw it. Oh, I saw it. But not being from a place of like, I know how to fix you. Because then we put our own bias on something. And then it can be very confusing and hurtful for yourself and for people if we go in like, I know what's wrong, and then start advising people. So the idea is to witness, become aware, and then you literally don't even have to do much. You just ask questions that are unbiased and people can answer all their own stuff. And then you're creating the space or holding the space for like a lot of the pouring out of the cup. And then that's what the meditation will do. When we've released a lot of fluid, let's just say there's, I don't know, a donut in the middle. And the donut is like that deep, deep, like core wounding. When we release the outer tensions, that's when we can actually start to get to like the core stuff, because the reality is that the core stuff happened when they were 3. And then what's been happening is they've been dealing with the 3-year-old on an intellectual basis, but 3-year-olds aren't intellectual. So when the core wounding is abandonment, then literally that's the type of person that, like I said, when I shared, I was like, I'm not feeling an attraction of, I need to marry this person and move in with them for the next 8 years and like be completely codependent. Right? We all have our own patterns and stuff. Obviously, that's one. When I've been asked, like, what are the requirements, or like, what do I want in a person? It's like, they have to be obsessed with me. A stalker is amazing. Like, this person has to be so devoted to me for me to feel comfortable. Otherwise, I'm not interested. And based on my shares, right, I'm unlovable. That makes sense why that's who I would go for. If someone else's story is abandonment, they're only going to go for people that abandon them, people that are unemotionally or emotionally unavailable. Because what we just do without being aware is we cement in that story of who we are. And we look through it by trauma bonding with other people. Hey, I'm a piece of shit. Do you want to beat me? Perfect. We're a match made in heaven. You can just keep, like reinforcing what a piece of shit I am. Thank you. So the idea here is like, that's pretty heavy. I mean, they got to come up with these realizations on their own. But like, when we deal with it as an adult from an intellectual, it's like, well, you're not a piece of shit. So if a 3-year-old came up to you and said, I'm a piece of shit, do you think that they're going to respond well to, you're not a piece of shit? No, they're not, because they don't, like, they've in their own mind created this story. So what do you think they need more than anything? All I can see is like, and I do this all the time with myself. This is my 3-year-old self whose mom has just punched her in the face. Okay. I just like, oh, babe, like, I just want to cry. It's not fair. That's not how a 3-year-old deserves to be taught. By saying you're not a piece of shit, you're fine. Like, you're strong. Like, seriously, you're fucking 3. So the intellectual response is not helpful. So if we can see everybody coming in with all their shit, regardless of how evil they are as an adult, it really, like, the only way that we could really support anyone in their healing is just love. That's it. Like, imagine them 3. Imagine them like broken, bruised, and battered, and they just come to you and they say, I'm a piece of shit. It's like, oh, babe, you're perfect. Come here. I'm sorry this is happening for you. This is why I love Ho'oponopono. Like, I'm sorry this is happening for you. Forgive me for being a fucking asshole to you for so long, and like the way that I didn't just give you love. I'm so sorry. Forgive me. And thank you for this opportunity to totally clear this moment right now. When you were talking, it brought up a lesson that I've like really started a new understanding, a new deeper embodiment of this idea of samskara, right? So we've got samskara, and what we know about samskara is that it's a latent impression in our mind, and that as long as we have them, we are here on this earthly plane, and we do not hit samadhi until we have basically erased that latent impression, because that's the definition of samskara, the translation of samskara. So I was sharing, let's just say the story is one of abandonment. And in yogic philosophy, we are not, this is such a short blip, this 80 or 100 years that we're here for. We hit these 80 or 100 years, or maybe 20 or 40 or whatever that looks like, repeatedly, time after time after time after time. And the latent impression, it does not change. That's the thing about it. It's the same throughout all of these lives. So when we think, oh, I got it, God's like, oh, do you now? Boom, papa tal. Like the stuff kind of happens that's like, you don't, because you're still here. Therefore, it's not complete. And the idea is like, let's just say, because Chris is not your samskara, it's not him. Chris is a part that has, cemented that samskara for the past 20 years. He is a different version of your dad. Your dad is a different version of whatever it is that true latent impression is, which is why we want to dive deep into like, who am I and what are my stories? So, at the heart of it all, it's I'm not good enough. And we can fix all of that suffering and that's the kleshas, right? By coming back to like remembering who we are, and we are amazing. So we can stop suffering, period, if we just remember that, like on the deepest level ever. And then we hit samadhi and then we're done. Yay. I don't know what happens after that, because it doesn't seem that the sutras talk about that part. But like, let's just say, because I'm starting to put down like all the different teachings. So past life regression, Brian Weiss he's a psychiatrist, did not believe in past life regression, even though past life regressions are a part of modern psychiatry. They're in the book as under hypnosis and as therapy to do with people. So crazy, but let's just put that. Anyways, he didn't believe in it. He'd never done it before. A friend of him at Stanford asked him, can you look at my friend? A lab tech comes in, she spontaneously regresses. He then looks up like past life regressions and starts regressing with her through 9 different lives. If you haven't read it, it's a great book, Many Lives, Many Masters, Brian Weiss. It's about 4-hour read. I didn't actually read it. I think I actually read it on the Kindle, just FYI. But it's a short read. And as they go through all these lives, which they visit many, many times, all of them for her are just suffering. It's just like shit. Like, she is a piece of shit, basically, in all of these lives. She's just like lowest of the low. She's like taking care of lepers. She's a leper taking care of other lepers in a cave, kind of like just suffering. And then I've had a lot of situations in which I have had people working on me that will tell me stories of past lives. And I do have my own past life regression experiences. None of them have been like really, really low. And a lot of what I hear, like my own regressions aren't of me being a teacher, but like my last Reiki at Anamaya, she's like, you have spent so many years being a teacher. And I believe that, like, I feel that, because I think this is almost natural in my body. That's what I realized a long time ago. I'm not a nurse, I'm a teacher. And that's why the transition from nursing to yoga was easy for me. And then I had an Ayurvedic treatment in which she was like, oh my God, I was working on you in Egyptian times. Like, so for me, my regressions have all been not like, hi, I'm a king or a queen, but they haven't been like these low suffering, though, we progress. Right. So, but what I started to realize was like, okay, so we have a life, we have this samskara, and then we learn lessons as the nervous system can understand it. Right. We learn lessons around the samskara. If we are conscious enough, we recognize the samskara and we can do like conscious work around it. If we're unconscious, we still do a lot of work around it. It's just unconscious. And I think the progression is quite a bit different from conscious to unconscious, more suffering in the unconscious, I would say, but like in a different way. So it's like, okay, tick, you learned that lesson. On to the next. Let's look at it from this view. Okay, tick, like, great, you were in power, you had the love of your life, you were whatever, you did all these things. Now you suck. Tick, learned it from this, but then maybe we have to learn it like several times because we're not getting it from like this level. So the samskara is what we can say if we look at the Atman, which is Sanskrit for basically like our soul. If you want to talk about it in terms that most people understand, the Atman is our soul. And that's the part of us that is ever present through all the lives. The samskara is the other thing. So this is our soul and the shit that we carry with our soul. And they go through life. So are we ever really done or over? No. You'll know because you will no longer need to be on this earthly plane when you've hit net neutral. When you finally figured it out, you're just going to die, but like never come back again kind of idea, as according to the yogis. So that's been hitting me over the last couple of weeks of like understanding samskara and what that looks like. It's like, first of all, are we ever really complete? And then second of all, okay, like when we talk about like we come here and we ask for this and all of that, we put it in terms that our nervous system will understand. It's true. It's not true, but it's also not that human. The school lesson, spelling, understanding suffering, and math. Like it's not a lesson like that. This is very deep and ingrained within like our bodies. So that's kind of what's come up for me. And so what I've started to sit with in my own self is, I mean, a lot of the time I can think I don't want to be here anymore. I would like this to end and I don't want to keep just coming back, but I have no idea because the next time could be amazing. Who knows? And it's not like this has been shit. I've had an incredible life, but like, honestly, it's not Shane. It's not Paul, it's not Ron, it's not my mom, it's not my dad, it's not male attention. Like, and I get that it's not good enough, but like, what is this? At like the deepest level that I can go, that I have been coming back to earth for how many lifetimes to learn this. And now I have a time to like sit, be introspective with it, and really like dive in as deep as I possibly can in this life to discover like really what is that. And I don't know if it's like, how do I overcome it? Because when we do, then we're not being. And I think overall, like that's kind of the lesson, but that's really hard. So I'm just keeping track of time. I can put it towards, so the house, the property I'm trying to purchase, I am going to purchase. I am purchasing. I got there, Jen went with me. I went there, it was like, yes, this is the place. We were sitting on the porch and we looked at each other and we're like, this is it. The owner was amazing, like this is the place. So I had 10 grand, I put it down. I was like, I don't know. We offered 185. I have $10,000. Let's do this. So we got an agreement, put the money down, and then I started to like, okay, where am I getting the money? And it's literally like God was kind of like, fucking take it. And then I finally took it. So now there's still like a $40,000 gap happening. And as mentioned, I think it was in the first session, I don't want to just go and start fundraising and get into building and like get this retreat center going. Like, I just want to take some time to be with the land and see if this is truly what is supposed to happen, or if it's just the land. Like, am I to just like have a home and a natural spring and be naked in the rain when it's lightning and let the trees take away my energy, which is what the owner told us he does on the property. Like, what am I supposed to do? But like, what I keep bumping into is like, if I want this money, people don't just want to give me money. I don't know why, but they don't just want to be like, here's 40 US, D. So like, what do I do? And I've been reading, I read You Squared, and it says like, whatever you've been doing, like it's, you don't need to do more. We tend to think, I've been doing this works, so if I do more, it's going to work better. And what's happened is like, sure, financially, it's been helpful. The more I work, the more money I make. But like, also, I only have so much energy to work that hard. And it is coming to an end. I can feel it. My body's like, fuck you. You're not doing this anymore. So I need to shift from doing to being. But I don't know how to fully embrace that. So I'm starting to think like, no one's just gonna, but that's not true. Maybe someone will, but like, what do I do? How do I make this happen? Without compromising integrity of like, I don't want anyone on the property, like as a shareholder, like as their name. And I don't want to start fundraising for a retreat center because I might not have one. So then what came is like, approach the schools for an advance, right? I've worked for these schools. I've done probably hundreds of thousands of dollars of work for them. That would be cool. What I'm starting to recognize with business relationships, even in the yoga world, is like, as long as it works in favor of the other person, they love the shit out of you, especially if you work really hard for them. But once, I'm asking for something, which would be kind of a favor, but I'm also giving them a deal, nobody has any money. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars come in and out of these schools, and they can't front me 20 grand each is what I've asked for. So like, slowly, one's totally avoiding me and won't even answer me. And then the other one was nice enough to be like, we just can't afford it. And I'm not shit talking the schools. I love them very much. I'm just recognizing like many things, right? Which I think is even further on the like, don't work so hard part of like, oh, so now that I'm not of benefit to you, I'm just dropped. And well, okay, fair. But also like, now what do I do? I feel out of doing options, and I don't want to owe a bunch of people money. Like, I also have to be realistic that if I'm moving into a home that's not bringing in income, I can't owe 4 people money. So it is like, can I truly be? And then I think there's a level of action that's really important. So I've just been really sitting with this samskara, which I think is a constant I do because I'm not enough, trying to fill this gap. If I don't do and I be, which is how a majority of the money actually came to me. So I know it's possible. It was literally like the universe wouldn't let me pay someone back over $100,000. So it came back to me, and if I took it, then I would lose 50% of that money in currency exchange. It was crazy, but it was like, it's happening. So, but how can we make it happen again with a smaller chunk? So hopefully that's like helpful in reinforcing what I'm learning. The piece of which I said, like, watch back and see this again until you get it, is like, I know when someone has something when they can communicate it. When I say it and it's like, yeah, that's yes. And then I say, okay, what are you hearing? And it's like, stuff and like some nervous system and emotions and more stuff. Then we know that, like, sure, it's a concept and it sounds great, but like, there's not a full embodiment of it until you can repeat it to me, like what it means to you, and I can understand it. So that's kind of like where I am right now with this samskara. It's been a concept for a long time, and I keep hitting on it, repetition, and now it's starting to go deeper of like, whoa, wait. And my attachment to wanting that property. I also know that like I could do whatever and still be told no by everybody and never get the land if I'm not meant to get it. So what do I do? And that's where I am right now. So hopefully that's helped or supported. That makes me want to I would like to end then with by reading from U Squared. One of my favorite things that I'll go back to when I am struggling with this like idea of being as opposed to doing. I love this actually. I opened it up and out fell the 4 agreements. And then on the other side, it says, I am here to serve. And that is not the same as pleasing. So it's labeled A True Story. This is by Price Pritchett. I'm sitting in a quiet room at the Millcroft Inn, a peaceful little place hidden back among the pine trees about an hour out of Toronto. It's just past noon, late July, and I'm listening to the desperate sounds of a life or death struggle going on a few feet away. There's a small fly burning out the last of its short life's energies in a futile attempt to fly through the glass of the window pane. The whining wings tell a poignant story of the fly's strategy: try harder. But it's not working. The frenzied effort offers no hope for survival. Ironically, the struggle is part of the trap. It is impossible for the fly to try hard enough to succeed at breaking through the glass. Nevertheless, this little insect has staked its life on reaching its goal through raw effort and determination. The fly is doomed. It will die there on the windowsill. Across the room, 10 steps away, the door is open. 10 seconds of flying time, and this small creature could reach the outside world it seeks. With only a fraction of the effort now being wasted, it could be free of this self-imposed trap. The breakthrough possibility is there. It would be so easy. Why doesn't the fly try another approach? Something dramatically different. How did it get so locked in on the idea that this particular route and determined effort offer the most promise for success? What logic is there in continuing until death to seek a breakthrough with more of the same? No doubt this approach makes sense to the fly. Regrettably, it's an idea that will kill. Try harder isn't necessarily the solution. Sometimes, in fact, it's a big part of the problem. If you stake your hopes for a breakthrough on trying harder than ever, you may kill your chances for success.